So a more challenging start for India than most of what they've faced in recent months. It's something Chris Harris had foreseen when we were building up to this series. And we're now joined by the former New Zealand all-rounder himself to look back at the first ODI. Chris, thank you as always for your time. A win that had to be grinded out for a change for India, but it's the kind of result that really pleases a unit.
Yeah, it was, especially with the start that they got. If you looked at the recent series they played against Sri Lanka, they weren't really tested. And that was my one concern for India coming into this Australian series. You know, whatever Australian side you play, it's going to be tough. And I thought Australia bowled brilliantly at the top. You know, to have India 3 wickets down for 11, and then even at, I think it was about 85 or 87 for 5, they really had India on the ropes. But they let India back into the game. You know, Pandya and Dhoni, absolute brilliant innings, and it just shows how good this Indian side is. Even if their top 4 or 5 batsmen fail, they've got the ability to come out. I think Australia suffered for not bowling a second spinner, and I also think that they just didn't attack enough, and they had to try and break that partnership, and they allowed those 2 batsmen to get in and take the game away from them.
Let's talk about those 2 match winners then, Chris, and where better to begin than Hardik Pandya. This was him repaying all the faith the team management has put in him and showing just how dangerous a game-changing all-rounder can be in any format.
Yeah, Pandya, terrific player. I mean, from a New Zealand perspective, we love him because for us, he's a bit like Brendan McCullum. He's one of those players that if he comes off, you know, on his own, he can win a game. The thing that I think that India have done brilliantly with Pandya is said, you're an aggressive player, you like to play your shots, so you've got a free licence, so we want you to go out and play that way. So, look, you're not going to come off 4 or 5 times out of 6, but if you come off once or twice every 6 or 7 games, we know that what you're going to perform is going to win us games, and it was magnificent. And what also I think really helped them was having Dhoni at the other end, to, you know, say you're playing well, you've got that confidence, I'm going to stay here with you. So, look, you just get yourself in, and when you feel right, just go for it. And wow, didn't he? What a terrific knock.
I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. MS Dhoni played a vital part in the turnaround, and while he was quite quiet through that partnership with Pandya, he took off in vintage style towards the end.
Yeah, it always looked to me as though it was setting up for a Dhoni Classic. I mean, we're all waiting for him to get a little bit slower, but just what I loved, I mean, he didn't hit a boundary in about his first 34 runs or something, and just the way that he showed his fitness, he supported Pandya at the other end by getting him on strike, and every opportunity, without looking for boundaries, he'd put it into the gap, and his running between the wickets is still as good as ever, and his fitness is great. And you know, just watching MS, you know, if he bats like that and he's 30, I think he was about 36 off 60 balls, you just know that if Australia don't get him out, they're going to pay later. And it was a terrific knock. Supported Pandya when he took, and when Pandya got out, he took over the mantle of being the aggressor and took India from, you'd almost say, a hopeless position to a terrific total at 281. I'm not sure how many down they were, but at the end of their 50 overs, I mean, halfway through the innings, you never gave India any chance of getting near that. So, you know, both of those guys, magnificent.
Let's look at the bowling now, Chris. Things did become a little tricky after that rain break, and you'd usually favour the side chasing in a target of 160 in a T20 game, but a disciplined effort and the 2 wrist spinners in particular were quite impressive.
Yeah, I think India would have been a little bit disappointed with that target, and I think Australia would have been happy at 160-odd off 21 overs. We know in the modern game, you know, that's a pretty run-of-the-mill or average T20 score. They're an experienced T20 side as well. So they would have been quite comfortable chasing that. You know, but I think India started magnificently. I mean, to get Australia 35 for 4, the seamers were terrific. And you touched on it, the spinners as well, especially when there's a bit of moisture around, the ball's a bit slippery. You know, both young men early on in their international careers bowled with, you know, real experience. And I think the whole Indian squad would be terrific, would be really delighted with their performance, because I thought they were 2 guys that stood out under pressure, but it was made a little bit easier by the seamers doing such a good job at the top. And then Australia always got behind the 8 ball and probably had to take more risk against those spinners than they would have liked, but both bowled superbly.
Right, one final word on the opponents, Chris. What are the takeaways then from an Australian perspective? What are the things they do going to Kolkata to try and fight back in the series?
There's a couple of things. When you're playing India, in India especially, if you get an opportunity to get on top, you've got to try and stay on top. As I said, I think they missed a trick. When they had India, it's always easier watching when you're not out there, but when they had India at 85 for 5, I thought they had to keep attacking and really try and break that partnership. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I think they took the foot off the throat a little bit and allowed those two players to get in, and we saw once they got in, well, it was just carnage. I think they'll also regret perhaps not playing a second spinner. And so, look, they bowled really well at the top, but they didn't finish the job off, and they never really got going with the batting. So I would think going forward, they'll probably look to play 2 spinners, and they'll really talk about their batting and how they're going to try and play this wonderful Indian seam and spin attack.
All right then, Chris, let's see if someone gets that word across to the Australian camp, and we could be in for some interesting contests. Look forward to your company as and when that happens.
Thank you. Can't wait for the rest of the series.